Imagine this incredible artifact, a nearly 70-meter-long embroidered cloth. It's a vibrant story sewn almost 1,000 years ago, ambition, betrayal, conquest. It's history, yes, but also propaganda. Maybe even the original graphic novel.
You're talking about the Bayeux Tapestry, of course. It's truly one of the most remarkable survivors from the 11th century. And our exploration today, well, it's going to uncover some surprising things, not just what happened in 1066.
But how it was told, right? How this single piece of needlework shaped history, how it worked as, ancient spin.
Exactly. How it acted as propaganda and how it still makes us think about truth and storytelling today.
So our goal here is to understand what makes this particular piece so significant. Why is this medieval embroidery one of the most important artworks from its time? And what lessons, maybe surprising ones, does it hold for its era and maybe even for ours?
Let's start with the sheer physicality of it.
Almost 70 meters, you said? That's what, 230 feet long and about half a meter, 20 inches tall. And you mentioned it's embroidery, not technically a tapestry.
That's a really key point. It's not woven into the fabric. The images are sewn onto a linen background using colored wool threads, basically drawing with needles and wool.
Okay, so sewing pictures onto cloth.
Precisely. And that makes it incredibly rare. It's a standout example of secular Romanesque art, that robust style from the period. And really, it's the sole surviving example of medieval narrative needlework. That's quite a claim.
58 scenes, you said, with Latin text.
Yes, 58 scenes, mostly these little Latin captions, tittily, guiding you along the story. And the fact that it survived almost completely intact for over 900 years, well, that's just extraordinary. It's exceptionally long, the colors are still relatively harmonious, and the skill, the workmanship, is exquisite.
It really makes you wonder who put this massive project together and why. There's that old French story, isn't there, about Queen Matilda?
Ah, yes, the romantic legend. Queen Matilda, William the Conqueror's wife, and her ladies-in-waiting stitching away. It's a nice image, and why it's sometimes called the Tapestry of Queen Matilda.
But that's probably not the real story.
Well, the scholarly view, built up over time, points elsewhere. The most likely commissioner was Bishop Odo of Bayeux. He was William the Conqueror's maternal half-brother, a very powerful figure.
Odo. Okay. And the thinking is he commissioned it when?
Probably in the 1070s. The timing fits really well with the dedication of his cathedral in Bayeux, around 1077. It seems likely it was made to be displayed there.
And what's the evidence for Odo?
Several things. First, 3 men known to be followers of Odo actually appear in the tapestry. Second, well, it was kept in his cathedral for centuries. And third, as I said, the timing lines up with the cathedral's construction. It all sort of hangs together.
Interesting. But here's a twist, right? Even though it was in Normandy, it was probably made in England.
That's what the evidence strongly suggests. By Anglo-Saxon artists, embroiderers specifically, you can see little hints of Anglo-Saxon spelling in the Latin text. The dyes used were traditional English ones. And maybe most importantly, Anglo-Saxon England was famous for its incredibly fine needlework. Opus Anglicanum, English work. It was highly prized across Europe.
So English hands made this Norman propaganda piece.
It certainly looks that way. Of course, there are other theories out there. Some suggest Edith of Wessex, King Edward's widow, maybe even an abbey in Saumur, or even wilder ideas about secret anti-Norman messages encoded in it. But the Odo in England theory is the most widely accepted.
And behind the commissioner and designers, there were the actual craftspeople, almost certainly women, doing that incredibly detailed stitching, that human element.
Absolutely. Hundreds, maybe thousands of hours of skilled labor by these women needleworkers, bringing this epic story to life, one stitch at a time.
So let's get into that story. The main narrative covers the events leading up to 1066, the Norman Conquest of England, ending with the Battle of Hastings. And it's told quite clearly from the Norman perspective.
Definitely. The 2 key figures are Harold Godwinson, who becomes King of England, and William, Duke of Normandy. It kicks off with King Edward the Confessor sending Harold off to Normandy. Now, the tapestry doesn't explicitly say why.
Ah, ambiguity again.
Right. But Norman sources, the ones telling William's side, claim Harold was sent to pledge loyalty, maybe even promise William the English throne. Anyway, Harold gets shipwrecked, captured by a local count, Guy of Ponthieu, and then William secures his release.
So Harold is indebted to William in a way.
Exactly. Then Harold actually joins William on a military campaign against Conan of Brittany. There's a famous scene where Harold pulls some Norman soldiers out of quicksand, showing his strength, maybe his value.
Okay.
And then comes a really crucial sequence. William gives Harold arms and armor, a sign of lordship, perhaps. And then Harold takes an oath, swearing on holy relics. Again, the tapestry shows the act of swearing, but not what he swore. The Normans, of course, claimed he swore to support William's claim to the English throne.
That oath becomes the whole justification, doesn't it? The breaking of that oath.
It's central to the Norman narrative, yes. Harold returns to England, sees the dying King Edward. The tapestry depicts Edward on his deathbed, seemingly gesturing towards Harold, as if granting him the kingdom.
So the tapestry does show Edward choosing Harold.
It does, visually at least. Then we see Harold's coronation. And significantly, the archbishop performing the ceremony is shown as Stigand. Stigand's position was canonically dubious. He'd been excommunicated by the Pope at one point.
Ah, so depicting Stigand was a way to subtly undermine Harold's legitimacy as king right from the start.
Precisely. A clever bit of visual argument. Then, look up in the border, there's Halley's Comet, the first known picture of it. People saw it as a terrible omen back then. And below, in the lower border, these spooky, ghost-like ships appear.
Foreshadowing the invasion fleet.
Absolutely. Then we see William ordering his invasion fleet built. Interestingly, the tapestry actually shows Bishop Odo giving the orders for the ships. Then the Normans land, unopposed. They forage for supplies, and there's the quite disturbing scene of soldiers burning a house.
With a woman and child.
Yes, a really poignant detail. It might suggest the harsh reality of the invasion, the ravaging of the land. Then it moves quickly to the Battle of Hastings, October 14th, 1066.
And it shows the tactics, right? The English shield wall on foot.
Against the Norman cavalry, yes. It depicts the ebb and flow. Bishop Odo is there again, rallying the troops with a mace because clergy weren't supposed to use swords that shed blood. And there's a moment William has to lift his helmet to prove to his frightened troops that he's still alive.
And then we get to the scene, Harold's death. Probably the most argued over image in the whole thing.
Oh, definitely. The traditional view is the figure labeled Harold getting an arrow in the eye. But it's hugely debated. Is the arrow original? Some think it was added or altered in the 18th or 19th century during repairs. Earlier drawings don't clearly show an arrow.
So it might not have been an arrow originally.
It might not have been. Plus, there's another figure nearby, also labeled Harold, being cut down by a sword. And there's the whole iconography angle in medieval art. Perjurers, oath breakers, were sometimes shown dying via a wound to the eye. So the arrow, if original, could be a symbolic way of saying Harold broke his oath to William.
Wow. So much packed into one image. What about that other strange scene, the Elfgava one?
Ah yes, the mystery woman. Ubi unus clericus et Elfgiva, where a certain cleric in Elfgiva. It shows a cleric touching or perhaps striking a woman's face under an archway with some rather explicit nude figures cavorting in the border below.
Any idea what that means?
Honestly, no one knows for sure. Theories range from a forgotten scandal involving William's family to a political allegory, maybe something about abduction attempts. It's completely enigmatic. And adding to the mystery, the tapestry just ends. The final section is missing.
Missing. What was likely on it?
Almost certainly William's coronation as King of England in London on Christmas Day, 1066. Its absence leaves the Norman triumph visually incomplete, which is itself quite intriguing.
So beyond the story, technically, how is it made? You mentioned the stitches.
Right. Two main stitches dominate. There's outline or stem stitch, used for, well, outlines and all the lettering. And then couching or laid work, which fills in the figures with blocks of color and creates this really vibrant textured effect.
And it wasn't one continuous piece of cloth.
No, it's made of 9 separate linen panels, sewn together after the embroidery was done on each one. They did a pretty good job hiding the seams, mostly. And the design itself is quite sophisticated. That main central band tells the story, but then you have these narrower borders, top and bottom.
And those borders aren't always related to the main action.
Not always directly. They're filled with birds, animals, some mythical, some real scenes of farming, hunting, even Aesop's fables. And as we mentioned, some surprisingly bawdy little nude figures here and there, sort of commentary maybe.
So it's this incredible visual document, but we have to remember its bias, right? It's the Norman story.
Absolutely. It's an apologia for the Norman Conquest, as historians call it, a defense, a justification, commissioned by a key Norman figure, likely Odo. Yet, interestingly, it doesn't make Harold look like a complete coward or villain. He and his English soldiers are shown fighting bravely.
And you mentioned the titles. William is always Duke, Dux. Harold is King after his coronation.
That's a significant detail, yes. It acknowledges Harold's status, even while the narrative aims to undermine it through things like the oath and the Stigand coronation scene. That coronation detail itself is questionable. Other sources say a different, more legitimate Archbishop Ealdred actually crowned Harold.
So reliability is tricky.
It is, if you're looking for purely objective history. The emphasis on the oath, the Stigand issue, these are likely Norman framing devices. But despite that bias, its value as a visual record of the time, arms, armor, ships, clothing, buildings, daily life is absolutely immense. It's a unique window into the 11th century world.
And its survival story is just as amazing as the thing itself.
Incredible. It survived the wars of religion when Bayeux was sacked in 1562. During the French Revolution in 1792, it was confiscated and apparently almost cut up to be used as covers for military wagons.
No way. Wagon covers.
Can you imagine? Luckily, a local official saved it. Then during World War II, the Nazis, particularly Himmler's Army organization, became obsessed with it. They saw it as proof of ancient Germanic, Nordic heritage and dynamism. They moved it to Paris, then tried to spirit it away to Berlin near the end of the war, but the French resistance managed to secure it.
What a journey. And its reputation changed over time, too.
Hugely. In the 18th century, some Enlightenment critics thought it was crude, barbaric, even complaining about the unrealistic colors, like the red and yellow horses, and the fact you could see the bare linen background. But then Napoleon displayed it in Paris in 1797, and it caused a sensation. It became a symbol of French national heritage, a major tourist draw, although Charles Dickens famously visited and thought it was rather clumsy.
Dickens wasn't impressed.
Apparently not. But its status grew, and in 2007, it was added to UNESCO's Memory of the World Register, recognizing its global significance, which connects to the recent news.
The loan to Britain.
It's exactly. President Macron announced it's set to be loaned to the British Museum, planned for September 2026 to July 2027. That would be its first time back in Britain in over 900 years. But it's controversial. There's already a petition arguing against the move, citing the risks of damage to such a fragile object during transport.
Understandable concerns. It really has become this icon. You hear it called the first strip cartoon. Racy, colorful, action-packed.
It definitely has that feel. That sequential narrative quality is why it's often cited as a precursor to comics. Its influence is everywhere, really. You see echoes in modern political cartoons, like one satirizing WWI called Ye Berlin Tapestry, or even a New Yorker cover about D-Day.
And people have made copies.
Oh, loads. Full-size replicas exist in stitch, mosaic, even carved wood. People feel compelled to recreate it. And some modern artists have even created continuations, stitching the missing end panels showing William's coronation, trying to complete the story.
It pops up in movies too, doesn't it?
Yes. Bits of it appear in the opening credits of films like El Cid, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. There's even a Simpsons couch gag based on it. And it continues to inspire large-scale modern embroideries, like the Overlord embroidery about D-Day.
And technology keeps finding new things. You mentioned cameras.
Right, a 2022 project used hyperspectral cameras, super advanced imaging, to analyze the original wool dyes. It helped reveal more about the original colors, which have faded, and maybe even tells us more about how different sections were stitched. Even now, it's still giving up secrets. And just recently, a version called the Bayeux Tapestry was commissioned for the video game Doom. The Dark Ages.
From 11th century battle to a video game about demons, it really shows how this ancient artwork keeps adapting, keeps inspiring. So we've traced this incredible object from what was likely 11th century Norman propaganda to a global cultural icon. It's a story of conquest, yes, but also of amazing craftsmanship, sheer survival against the odds, and how history itself gets told, gets framed.
And that framing is key. When you look at the Bayeux Tapestry, remember, you're not just seeing history depicted, you're seeing history interpreted, deliberately shaped. Which leads to a thought, maybe for you listening. What other historical accounts, maybe even things you encounter today, might be subtly shaping your understanding, much like the tapestry did, perhaps without you fully realizing it?
That's a powerful question. I definitely encourage you to look up images of the Bayeux Tapestry online. There are some great digital versions where you can zoom right in. Just think about how one piece of art, nearly 1,000 years old, still sparks so much debate and fascination across the centuries. It challenges how we see the past and maybe even our present.